Here's today's talk. By the end of Social Dance 1, some students tell me that one of the greatest benefits they gain from this class is how to deal with making mistakes or dealing with failure, dealing with it successfully and confidently. So that's today's halftime break, one of my longer halftime breaks. So if you could eavesdrop at a social dance, the two words most commonly uttered are probably "oops" and "sorry." And my friend, Dr. Frank Clayton, he was an orthopedic surgeon. He told me a funny story about "oops." He told me that when he was in medical school, they told him that if he ever slipped up and made a mistake during surgery, never say "whoops." The patient might be awake, become very worried. But didn't stop there. The instruction was to retrain that automatic response. They said, if you make a mistake, instead of saying "whoops," say "there." So if you ever mess up while dancing, just smile to your partner confidently and say "there." So here's a short essay by one of my students, Vince Ranganathan. I often apologize. I say, sorry for the misstep, for mixing up two moves, for forgetting a move, or for not communicating my intentions better. There are times when an apology is necessary, like when a toe is accidentally stepped on, but the reality is that most of the time, an apology isn't necessary. I've realized that it's actually detrimental to repeatedly apologize for small errors. It signals to my partner, I'm sorry that you have to deal with this. But if instead I laugh it off, then they laugh too. The interaction changes from me annoying them with redundant apologies to us sharing smiles. And then it's an upward spiral of energy from there. The message that I convey is, I made a mistake, but let's keep on going and have some fun with it. And the reception is more positive than self-deprecation. So my plan of action when I mess up is to laugh. At worst, I'll look a little silly, but I'll be having a good time. At best, my partner will start laughing too, and we'll both be having a good time. When the other option is saying sorry 20 times and ending the dance on awkward terms, the right choice is clear. Gregory Manker he wrote a similar essay about mistakes. It's a longer essay, so here's just one paragraph from it. I'll link his full essay on Zoom modules. He wrote, what is a mistake? A mistake is defined by perception. People are usually so focused on their own dancing that they won't notice a problem unless it's pointed out to them. A mistake only exists if it gets labeled as such. After a certain point, I stopped apologizing for missteps and ambiguous leads, and I learned to smile and keep going. And my dance experience improved dramatically. Even if a partner notices that I messed up, what good does it do to point it out? One of the best dances I had was a tango in which I had forgotten all of the moves and my partner led me through it. We were laughing so hard she forgot some of the steps. The philosopher William James would have agreed. He wrote, the art of being wise is knowing what to overlook. That's a great attitude while social dancing. The art of being wise is knowing what to overlook. So in another class essay, John Sanderson, he was sick and watching. It was an advanced level class. He was watching from the balcony. So by then he knew who the best dancers were down there. And he wrote, in observing them, I was struck by the fact that they made mistakes just as frequently as everyone else. They just bounced back from them more easily. Whereas less confident dancers would be thrown off for several measures by a mistake, those I was observing were promptly right back into the swing of things, laughing it off with their partners. They seem to have better internalized the idea that we all strive for, to dance for the sheer enjoyment of it, with less concern for precision and technical footwork. So since we're in the TAPS department, theater, I like to quote the playwright Bertolt Brecht. He wrote, intelligence is not to make no mistakes, but to see how to make them good. I love that. And that's what John Sanderson, that's what he was observing from the balcony. Now, I see this next quote many places, but it's always unattributed, anonymous. It's simply, a mistake is a lesson, not a loss. It's a temporary detour, not a dead end. I love that one because that's exactly how a mistake feels while dancing. It feels like a temporary detour. And the new scenery is always interesting on that detour. Now, as I mentioned before last week, both social and competition ballroom dance, they're both valid avocations, but they're very different from each other. A big difference is the attitude concerning mistakes, because in competitions, judges deduct points for every mistake. So competitive dance culture is aligned against making mistakes from day one. When the follow does something different from the choreography or from what the lead intended, it's considered a mistake, which is to be eliminated. Competitive dancers work very hard to achieve 100%. But in social dancing, mistakes are accepted as inevitable. Social dancers laugh them off, as you just heard, they move on. We're happy if things work out 75, 80% of the time. And that other 20%, that's when most learning happens. And besides, mistakes aren't always mistakes, right? The follow made a valid alternate interpretation of the lead, not a mistake. And maybe the lead accidentally created something fun and it didn't feel wrong. Now that right there is an important phrase in social dancing. And that was also in the student essay that I read at the beginning of the class. It didn't feel wrong. Striving to do something correctly has only one right answer. But thinking that worked and it didn't feel wrong, that has 100 right answers. So think of the first nanosecond of a mistake. Think of it as the beginning of something new. At that first moment of whoops, see if you can welcome that chance intrusions, welcome it as an opening to a new figure, or hey, it's a new conclusion to the figure that I was intending. It's just a detour. Think of it as exploring new territory. Think of it as making something up as you go. Mistakes can be creative expression. As Scott Adams of Dilbert, as he said, creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes. Art is knowing which ones to keep. I love that quote. So be curious, learn from mistakes. What do we want to learn from mistakes? How to avoid future mistakes? Nope, that's competition ballroom. We want to learn what else is possible. And we want to learn how to keep moving through a mistake as if it was intentional, or as the chance to learn something new. Now, there's a little bit more. Here is advice for follows from a follow. Argentine tango instructor Susanna Miller. She said, don't try to be correct. Don't avoid mistakes or your feet will have tension. Rather, make mistakes freely and enjoy them. Step wherever you step, boldly and confidently. The philosopher Elbert Hubbard, he said, the greatest mistake you can make is to be afraid of making one. And then finally, here's another essay. It's an essay from Brandon Azad. He retook Social Dance 1, again, as a follow this time. I've taken Social Dance 1 before as a lead a year ago, and I remember worrying that my partners were not enjoying themselves if I messed something up or didn't remember all of the figures we learned, and I apologized profusely. However, taking Social 1 from the follows perspective has helped me appreciate that partnering is an unscripted communication. And while sometimes things don't work out as intended, that's not necessarily a bad thing, and definitely not something that one should feel bad for. Dancing from the follows perspective now, I would occasionally see the same guilt and apology that I once felt as a lead. But on none of those occasions was I not having a blast. I, from a year ago, probably wouldn't have believed that I, as a follow, really don't mind the mess ups. I definitely wouldn't have believed that half the time that I heard whoops or sorry while following, I didn't even notice any awkwardness in the dance at all. So realizing that I still enjoy dancing as a follow when my partner messes up has really boosted my confidence, both as a lead and a follow. Before, I took the phrase, the lead is dancing for the follow. I took that too literally. I worried that my indecision or unclear leads would ruin my partner's experience. I now understand that dancing for your partner does not mean perfectly, so she knows exactly how to move, but rather in a dialogue with your partner. The point is to be there for your partner, to keep communication open as each figure flows into the next, and to enjoy each other's company. And those are my thoughts on mistakes.